abuse, and assault of varying degrees. If that is not something that interests you, I highly encourage you to exit the video now. There are many, many, many incredible content creators on YouTube that will have videos that are more up your alley. For those of you that choose to stay and enjoy true crime cases like myself, thank you for watching. Welcome, and let's get started. On a Sunday morning in 1992, 13-year-old Carrie Ann Buck walked toward her friend's house through her suburban neighborhood in Jacksonville, Florida, when she heard the low rumble of a vehicle pulling up behind her. Carrie Ann turned around to see a white van with tinted windows slowing down beside her. The passenger side window of the van rolled down and the driver, a man in his 30s, called out, "Do you know Susie?" Carrie Ann replied no and continued walking. Slowly rolling beside her as she walked, the man then said, "Do you go to Southside Middle School?" His voice sounded angry to the young girl. She replied no, which actually was a lie. The man was a stranger, so why should Carrie tell him the truth? Carrie Ann knew that she was not supposed to talk to strangers. She was raised, to believe that, and so she didn't want to tell this man the truth. The man, however, didn't like her answer, and he stopped the van and commanded for her to get into the van. Carrie Ann ran down the street as fast as she possibly could. When she reached her friend's house and pounded on the door, there was no answer. Fortunately, she knew the neighborhood well and continued running around the corner to a large park as this man ran after her. In the park, Carrie Ann found a playground which had a children's slide shaped into a tube. She climbed the ladder, slid halfway down the tube, stopped, and wedged herself against the walls of the slide. Carrie Ann could hear the man entering the area around the playground as she pushed harder and harder against the walls, trying not to slip out the bottom of the tube. She heard him grunt and say something along the lines of, "I know you're in there, and I'm going to find you." She waited for what seemed like an eternity and eventually got up the courage to peek out. He was gone. For the time being, Carrie Ann was safe, so she ran back home as fast as she could. Carrie Ann and her parents were on edge, of course, for several days afterward, and Carrie was frightened to step foot outside of their home. A few weeks after the incident, Carrie Ann's mother saw a strange white van parked outside of their house. Mrs. Buck called her daughter to the window, and Carrie Ann confirmed that it was the van of the man that tried to abduct her. Carrie's mother took down the license plate and called the police. The owner of the van was 36-year-old Donald Although she had given up her firstborn daughter 20 years prior to relatives in Australia, she was doing her best to raise her 3 youngest daughters by herself in Jacksonville. 8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle was the oldest of the girls living with Rain. Rain had a very brief relationship with Cherish's father, Billy Giroux. To put it bluntly, it was just a one-night stand. In 2003, she had been a stripper. Billy, a recently divorced Navy officer, when they met at a Jacksonville strip club. After several nights of lap dances, Billy convinced her to go home with him, and 9 months later, Cherish was born. Initially, Billy contested his paternity. He was willing to provide support for the girl, but needed proof that he was the father. Eventually, a court ordered a paternity test proved that he was indeed Cherish's father, so he accepted her with open arms and financial support. However, despite the financial support, Rain continued to struggle to get her life on track. She had 2 more girls with another man, but never married, while Billy believed Cherish would be better off living with him in California. He tried several times to get custody of the girl, but each time failed. Instead, Rain agreed to let Cherish spend summers with her father in California. On June 21st of 2013, Rain was reluctantly getting ready to send Cherish to California for the summer. The flight was scheduled for the next day, and Rain took her 3 girls to the Dollar General store to get Cherish some clothes for the trip. They shopped in the store for over an hour, unaware that 61-year-old Donald Smith was watching them from afar. Rain and Cherish found a little black and white dress with hearts that they liked, but when Rain asked the cashier the price of the dress, she realized she didn't have enough money to buy it and still pay for a taxi to the airport the next day. Donald Smith had come into the store just minutes before and asked the cashier if they had any adult magazines. When Smith overheard Rain explain to the cashier that she couldn't afford this dress, he took notice. He could tell that Rain was frustrated and struggling to provide for her daughters. When Rain and the girls left the store, Smith approached her outside of the store and said, "If you really want that dress, I'll get it for you. You look like you really have your hands full. I have a couple little ones myself." At first glance to Rain, he seemed harmless enough. Just an older guy, even a good Samaritan, perhaps. Rain had no way of knowing that he was a deranged predator that had been released from prison only 3 weeks earlier. Smith introduced himself as Don and explained to her that he was waiting for his wife to arrive. He claimed his wife had a Walmart gift card for $150 that he was willing to give to help her buy Cherish some clothes. Rain was apprehensive about talking to a complete stranger, but he spoke at length about his own young children and wife, none of which actually existed. He told her he worked for the charity Habitat for Humanity, which was another lie. When Rain informed him that she needed to get home and get Cherish ready for her flight, he told her to be patient and encouraged her to wait. He said that his wife would show up any minute and she would be driving a gold car. He then reached into his pocket, opened his phone, and even pretended to talk to someone on the other line. After the call, he said, "That was my wife. She's just going to meet us at Walmart." Walmart was 10 minutes away, and Rain didn't own a car. She had no way to get there other than by a taxi, but of course, Smith offered to take them in his van. Still feeling uneasy, she declined at first, but he insisted he was no threat. He said, "Do you want to see my driver's license or something?" He did his best to make her feel foolish for being paranoid, so eventually she accepted the ride. When they arrived at Walmart around 9 p.m., Rain and the initially concerned, but Smith had spent the entire night making Rain feel overprotective. She knew there were security cameras all over the store and believed there was no chance he could disappear with her daughter. Ignoring her better judgment, Rain let her daughter follow the man she had met only hours ago. Knowing the store was closing soon, Rain and her two girls finished up their shopping and pushed their cart toward the front of the store. When they got to the McDonald's, Cherish and Don Smith were nowhere to be found. Rain pushed her cart with a quickened pace back and forth along the front of the store, looking down each aisle for her daughter. As she passed each empty aisle, she felt her heart beating harder and harder. With each step, she became more and more panicked. When Walmart announced they were closing for the night and she couldn't find her daughter, terror overwhelmed her. Rain was frantic. She had asked for help from Walmart employees to call 911, saying that her daughter had been taken. Rain didn't have a working phone of her own and asked them to call, but the Walmart employees didn't actually take her seriously. The store was massive and the employees just assumed the young girl was lost. Of course, and understandably so, Rain continued to panic. She looked through the store and in the parking lot, but there was no sign of her daughter or Smith's white van. After 11 p.m., the store had closed, and Rain hadn't seen her daughter for a full 30 minutes before a Walmart employee finally let her borrow a cell phone. During the heart-wrenching 911 call, Rain explained the events of the day as police rushed to the scene. Quote from the 911 call: "I had a bad feeling. I thought, well, I feel like pinching myself because this is too good to be true. So I got to the checkout and he's not here, and I'm hoping he's not raping her right now, because I've had that done to me. I don't understand why he would leave right now unless he was going to rape and kill her. That's the only reason, and I'm wasting my time standing here." End quote. Rain was so distressed she couldn't even remember what her daughter had been wearing that day. Throughout the night, Rain described the van and Smith's appearance to police. Using the description and checking the local sex offender registration, police quickly knew they were looking for Donald Smith. By 4 a.m., police had issued an Amber Alert. By morning, the entire area of Jacksonville was looking for Cherish, Smith, and his white van. Just after 7 a.m., police received a call from a woman in North Jacksonville. She had seen a white van parked in an odd spot. It was discreetly parked in some bushes behind a church. It seemed suspicious to the woman because it was wedged deeply into the bushes. The woman suspected that someone in the van had dumped something in the bushes, but when the police arrived and did the initial search of the area, they couldn't find anything. Smith lived with his mother. The police had already been to her house looking for him, but she claimed that she had no idea where he was. After they left the house, police received a call from a man that rented a room at the Smith home. He told the police that the prior afternoon, he had helped Smith remove the middle row of seats from his van. He also said that Smith had told him that if he ever had to run from the police, he would hide in the woods near a homeless camp in the area. Smith had told the man that he knew someone that had lived at the camp for 28 years without police ever bothering him. Every division of law enforcement in the area was on the lookout for Smith's 1998 white Dodge van. It didn't take long to find him. Before noon the morning after the abduction, Smith was pulled over and arrested, but there was no trace of Cherish. When the arresting officer noted his pants were soaking wet, he yelled to the other officers officers. "Oh my God, she's in the water." Police rushed back to the Highlands Baptist Church. The earlier calls of suspicions were correct. The same officer that arrested Smith found the body of 8-year-old Cherish Perrywinkle wedged under a tree in a marshy wetland behind the church. Her body had been weighed down with chunks of asphalt and hidden with grass and branches. She was still wearing the bright orange dress with a fruit pattern on it, but naked beneath it. Her underwear and purple flip-flops were never found. The 67-pound girl had been gagged, raped, and sodomized for hours before she was strangled to death with a piece of clothing. The massive force of the trauma caused her gums, nostrils, and eyes to bleed. A forensic pathologist that examined her body would later tell the court, quote, "She had so much trauma, her anatomy was totally distorted by all that she had suffered," end quote. So, fast forward to February of 2018, almost 5 years later, the trial of Donald Smith began. He faced the death penalty if found guilty of his crimes. The trial was incredibly emotional as Rain Perrywinkle recounted the horrifying evening. The jury was shown photos of the young girl that made them gasp out loud and cover their eyes, and some even cried out loud. Even Smith turned his back and couldn't look at the autopsy photos of Cherish. The Walmart and Dollar General security camera footage evidence against him left very little doubt of his guilt. When asked if the defense wanted to cross-examine Rain, Smith said, quote, "I don't want her to go through anything she doesn't have to go through. I'm done," end quote. The jurors only took 15 minutes to convict Donald Smith of kidnapping, rape, and murder. The week following his conviction, the jurors were asked if he should spend life in prison or be executed. New constitutional guidelines required a unanimous decision, and every single juror chose the death penalty. At sentencing, Judge Mallory Cooper's voice cracked with emotion when she told Smith, quote, "Donald Smith, you have not only forfeited your right to live among us, you have forfeited your right to live at all. May God have mercy on your soul," end quote. After suffering the loss of her daughter, Rain Perrywinkle's troubles were not over. The public condemned her, blamed her for leaving her daughter alone with Smith. Some went so far as to speculate that she was somehow involved in human trafficking. It didn't help matters when it came out during a deposition that Rain claimed she was a clairvoyant and had a vision that her daughter would be dead by the time she was 8 years old. After the death of Cherish, Rain was unable to shake the extreme grief of the traumatic event, topped off with the blame from the public. She couldn't keep a job and was often turned down because everyone knew her name. The state of Florida gave her 12 months to show that she could provide for her 2 remaining daughters, but it wasn't enough. 9-year-old Destiny and 7-year-old Nevaeh were inevitably adopted by Rain's sister and now live with her older sister